Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. And the name of the station is Salam Media, where we bring you the stories that matter. Today, we are diving into a major diplomatic move by President Cyril Ramaphosa, the appointment of former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas as South Africa's special envoy to the United States. This comes amid strained relations between Pretoria and Washington following the expulsion of our former ambassador, Ibrahim Rasool. I think we all know that well-documented story, him being given that stamp of being persona non grata. With tension so high and Trump back in the White House, can Mcebisi Jonas help mend this critical relationship? And joining us now to unpack this is Dr. Oscar van Heerden. Is a senior research fellow at the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership at UJ. He's also a seasoned political analyst. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. Really a pleasure, and always looking forward to interesting insights coming from you.
Good morning, Silo, and good morning to your viewers and listeners.
I think we can kickstart the conversation with obviously the big question. Why Mcebisi Jonas for this big task? What makes him the right person for this diplomatic hot seat, especially given, the current tensions between South Africa and the US, who one might feel need the president to step up and to go to the United States himself and present his case?
Silo, the truth of the matter is that there is no right person. Whether we've chosen obviously Jonas, whether we've chosen someone else, there was going to be criticism, there was going to be lots of analysis as to whether it's the right person and so on. But the president made a decision and has decided it is Jonas. I think it is partly because he brings certain experiences to the table. On the one hand, he was Deputy Minister of Finance. He understands Treasury, he understands our fiscal position as a country, what the needs are. And then, of course, as chairman of MTN, the private sector, he understands business, South Africa. He understands what business needs. He understands the importance of trade relations with the number one economy in the world. And hopefully that combined experience will put him in good stead with engaging with the Trump administration. And you're right to indicate that is if they are willing to engage, that is if they are willing to open the door, because so far they have not been.
If you were Mcebisi Jonas right now, Doc, what would be your primary thought process? What would be the first thing you'd see as imperative to engage the United States on, again, if they are willing to listen? What would that be? Where do you even begin when there's so much? You have the issue of tariffs. You have the issue of this genocide that they seem to be convinced that is happening here in South Africa. Where do you start when there's so much happening?
If I was to advise Mcebisi, I would say that the last port of call should be Washington, D.C. The first port of call should be to meet with all the 600 plus American businesses that is here in South Africa, that is part of our stock exchange. It's to meet with those CEOs and those leadership of those companies, to first and foremost inform them, convince them, and tell them that that these things are lies, untruths, that these things are not happening to the Afrikaner community. There's no land grabs, there's no murder, there's no genocide, and so forth, and to indicate to them the importance of them staying here in South Africa and participating in the economy. So that would be the first port of call. Then I would ask Jonas to go to some of the other major capitals, not the United States. Go to Beijing, go to Melbourne, go to London, go to Moscow, go to Rio de Janeiro, and so on and so forth, to go and meet, even though these might be traditional allies, even though these might be traditional partners. But it's important to go to those countries, to meet with the powers that be, and to convince them and to tell them and inform them that unfortunately President Trump is basing his executive order and his policy choices with regards to South Africa on untruths and lies. And of course, in the process, also tell them that we need business from them, we need trade relations from them, and so on and so forth. And then, as a last resort, you end up in Washington, D.C., having done that world tour, having done all the necessary steps, and then see if there's appetite for the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of State, and others to actually engage with you, to meet with you, and so on. I would have wanted there to be more than one person. Mcebisi Jonas, as I say, is a very capable individual, but I would have wanted the envoy to consist of perhaps 3 or 4 people, because, it's not only the experience of Mcebisi that is relevant here. I think we should have had someone that understands statecraft, understands international relations, but also someone who is much more vested in understanding the play and the powers that be within the United States itself and in the corridors of Washington, D.C. So, it's a difficult task for him, but hopefully we'll be able to make some inroads.
And I think you're encroaching on my question to say, are we ever going to get to a point where our diplomatic ties with the United States of America seem to, warm up again? You have issues on South Africa's foreign policy, the issue of the ICJ case on Gaza, then you have AGOA tensions. It seems it's gone beyond a state of repair. Can we say that? Because it almost feels like for us to get into the United States good books again, there's a lot that we need to change. And these are things that are in our policy. These are things that are, amendments that are signed internally here in South Africa. And it looks like we have to sacrifice a whole lot more to get into America's good books. Would we be able to do that? Would we be able to sacrifice a lot of, internally agreed upon things just to please the United States of America?
Yeah, look, you're hitting the nail on the head. It's really, really difficult. These are policy choices that were made. These are things dear to South Africa in terms of its values, in terms of its solidarity with the Palestinian people and so forth, but also the fact that there is just blatant violation of international law on the part of the State of Israel. I think it is important to note that the kinds of demands that the Trump administration is placing on the South African government is such that if we acquiesce, if we agree to backpedal, to change these decisions and policy choices, then it simply means that we are compromising our sovereignty. And this is really at the heart of it. It's one thing to ask us to perhaps change our relations with regards to Iran or Russia, but it's quite another to say that if you don't do what we say, then we are going to punish you. Because what that then means is that you will be punished in perpetuity. There's no decisions you will take unless you check with the big boss called Donald Trump. And that's something that South Africa is wary about. It's a position that no country wants to find itself in. And that's why it is so difficult to meet the Trump administration halfway.
I want us to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want us to focus on, what happens in the event that Mcebisi Jonas fails to smooth things out with the United States. What could be a plan B? Does South Africa have other allies who can step in, or are we looking at complete economic isolation from the United States and sanctions? As you know, we've heard a lot of people saying it could be a reality, but we'll touch on that after this short break.
This is Salam Media.
It's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day, or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name. Valley's Motor Spares.
Abu Huraira narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, "In black seed there is a healing for every disease except death." This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makwidiri. President Cyril Ramaphosa has reshuffled South Africa's diplomatic deck, and at the center of this bold foreign policy gamble is none other than former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas. I think a lot of us will remember him for, whistle blowing, the issue of state capture in the Guptas and that 6 million bribe story that he turned down, if I remember. Yeah. That guy, he's been appointed as South Africa's special envoy to the United States. Jonas, I think, is walking into a storm, one shaped by icy relations, geopolitical tension, and mistrust that has brewed between Pretoria and Washington for months. So we asked the question, is this a reset, rescue mission, or a red flag of desperation? And joining us to unpack all of that is a senior research fellow at the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Oscar van Heerden, who's also an astute political analyst. Doc, thank you so much for staying with us. Before I went on that short break, I asked the question, what happens? What's the reality if Mcebisi Jonas fails to smooth things over? What's plan B? Does South Africa have allies who can step in, who can maybe speak on our behalf? We know that we've had really cordial relationship with the EU. They've been really good friends of South Africa. Or are we looking at complete economic isolation where we have to look elsewhere and focus on other strategic diplomatic partners like China and the BRICS bloc, for instance?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not the desired outcome. Obviously, South Africa wants to keep relations with the number one economy in the world, the United States of America. But what do you do when the administration is convinced? They've convinced themselves that there's something wrong with the South African government, with the South African people, that we are genocidal, that we are grabbing land, and that we are killing white farmers, and so on and so forth. It's a very difficult environment to be in when you are supposed to convince people that these things are lies, that it is not the reality. So I think the way forward is looking very bleak with the Trump administration. I think that they have made up their minds that we are definitely going to be removed from AGOA in September. I think there's going to be more sanctions, including on individuals in the African National Congress, in government, and possibly even private citizens, as we've seen is the case in Venezuela, in Russia, and other places. I think they're going to see that through. And yes, I do think that we are going to be isolated in the future with regards to our relations and trade with the United States. I think that South Africa must, of course, as a matter of course, try to engage with the Trump administration, try to smooth things over, even though it's proving very, very difficult. But at the same time, we need to also face the reality of a leader that is very chaotic, that is unpredictable, and that is a disruptor. And so I think it's incumbent on us as South Africa to also begin to welcome the bilateral trade agreement between ourselves and the European Union that amounted to 90 plus billion rand over the short to medium term. I think it's important that we strengthen bilateral trade relations with other partners, among others, the BRICS countries, but also others in terms of consolidating our relations with Africa, with the rest of the continent, and so forth. These are all very important so that, even though there is probably about 156, 160 billion rand hanging in the balance with regards to the trade between South Africa and the United States. And yes, we are a very small economy in comparison. But what do you do when the big bully decides they don't want to play with you anymore?
And talk about big bullies. One of the headliners or the front man of this bullying, and we hope that we'll probably give Mcebisi Jonas a time of day, is Marco Rubio. I would like us to talk about him a bit. The U.S. Secretary of State, who kicked out Rasul, labeled him persona non grata. He's also a very hardliner when it comes to Cuba and Venezuela, and now South Africa also. How do you even negotiate with someone like that? How do you begin talks with him if he does even give you a chance to sit on the same table as him?
The truth here is that we need a bit of Ubuntu, if you ask me, Salilo.
That's a South African concept. Okay.
Absolutely. You need to engage with people with a modicum of respect, with treating them as adults, and also just with some dignity. I think it's very, very important that not only Jonas, all South Africans, from our foreign mission, diplomatic mission, the United Nations, etc., anyone and everyone that has engagements on a diplomatic level, not only with the US, but with the world, needs to show some measure of dignity, some measure of respect. We need to be treated as equals. And I think that is disarming. We are not in a fighting mode. We're not fighting with the United States. And it's the United States that have decided to take issue with us. It's, in the international diplomatic arena is all about, like politics, it's all about perceptions. We need to demonstrate and show to the world that South Africa operates within the rules-based environment, that we follow the rules. We might have disagreements, of course, but you deal with it as equals, as responsible individuals, and with the modicum of respect and dignity. And if your hand is still at that stage slapped out of the way, and there's just no reception to meet you halfway, then you need to go back to the drawing board and ask the question: how then do we move forward? We need to also understand that, in as much as many people are saying that the Trump administration and the Republicans are going to be around for the next 8 years at least, we don't know that. We don't know what's going to happen in the primaries come the next 2 years. Trump, I suspect, knows that he is straddling a very thin line with Congress, and this is the reason why he's decided to rule by decree through executive orders and not actually going to Congress and taking them into his confidence, because he knows that there are Republicans out there within Congress that doesn't agree with him necessarily on each and everything that he's doing, and that they can block him. And because of that precarious position, it can very well change in 2 years' time. And once the House is divided, once the House is not Republican, it then means that things change diplomatically and internationally and in terms of trade. Over and above that, the presidency is only 4 years. We don't have to look at this as if it's permanent. We need to sit back and make our calculations. And that's why it's important that the special envoy also needs to engage other stakeholders within the United States context, not only the Trump administration, but you need to meet with the Democratic Party, you need to meet with the Black Caucus, you need to meet with other business interests and so on and so forth. And again, whether we like him or not, we need to meet again with Elon Musk and clarify this issue of triple BEE and the legislation and so forth, and the fact that there is still room to bring Starlink to South Africa. This is not animosity. We know, for example, that he had made similar concessions with the Indian government. It might not be called BEE, but the Indian government also had certain very basic demands before they allowed Starlink to come into the Indian airspace. So it's not insurmountable issues. But at the end of the day, it is important to say that at the heart of all of this, it's not the Afrikaner community, it's not expropriation without compensation, it's everything to do with the case that South Africa took to the International Court of Justice. It is everything to do with holding Israel accountable for its genocide in Gaza. And this is really at the heart. Marco Rubio and most people around Trump, including Trump, are fierce defenders of Zionism and of the state of Israel. And that is really at the heart of what this is all about.
And I think you just closed off there by answering my closing question, because I wanted to ask if, there are any own goals, if I can put it that way, that South Africa itself has conceded when it comes to our relations with the United States of America. Are there things that we could have probably handled a bit better? Like, for instance, there was a lot with regards to how the expropriation bill was presented. It was through a tweet. The presidency saying we signed the expropriation bill, and it was just this headline that I think a lot of people misunderstood, because people interpreted the headline and didn't actually go to the bill, read what it entails, and I think that kind of raised red flags when it comes to the white Afrikaner community and how they responded. So I think you touched on it a bit, but internally, are there own goals? Is there any self-sabotage that we can maybe look at and said, we could have handled the situation a bit better than we did?
No, I don't think, Salailo, there's any own goals. When the United States decided that they need to weaponize the United States dollar and want to force people to do things and impose sanctions if it doesn't go their way, and hold countries at ransom because the global foreign reserve currency is the United States dollar. So they decided to weaponize it. Did they think there shouldn't be consequences? Did they think that people were not going to respond to that weaponization? When the United States decided to weaponize diplomacy, it is the US that decided to weaponize diplomacy by saying to our foreign representatives, among others, including former Ambassador Rasool, that if you don't toe the line, if you don't say what we want to hear, if you don't act in what we want to see, then we will expel you. That is weaponizing diplomacy. And now the latest is weaponizing of trade. Do what we say, do as we say it. Otherwise, we are going to slap you with tariffs. Otherwise, we are going to come with sanctions and so on and so forth. So the United States is the one that needs to do some serious introspection. If you weaponize these things, there will be a response. And this is what is happening with most countries. They are responding to the weaponization of these elements. And so it's going to be a difficult task going forward. I think that, of course, there are some low-hanging fruits, if we must use that language, Silo. For example, now is not the time to push the issue of renaming Santon Drive to honor a liberation fighter of the Palestinian people. That can be put in abeyance. It can be put on the back burner. We can scream and profess that we are not in discussions with the Iranians around this and that. We can scream and profess that we did not sell arms to Russia in terms of Lady R, but they don't want to believe us. They simply don't want to believe us, even when we put the facts on the table, even when there's independent inquiries that dispel such allegations and stuff like that. So you are dealing with a different animal. And I think that now is not the time for President Ramaphosa's government to go cap in hand. This is not the time to go and beg, because that's not the language that Donald Trump understands. If you go there begging, they treat you like he treated Zelensky and Keir Starmer and Macron. He makes a fool of you. But when you stand up to him, when you say defiantly, we are not going to be bullied, like the Prime Minister of Canada did, then you get a phone call. Then there's mutual respect. When China stands up to the United States, then Trump takes notice. He doesn't like losers. And I think the South African government, Mcebisi Jonas and Ramaphosa, needs to take lessons from this. We need not go and be the beggar and be the coward and be the one who cowers to the United States, even though it is such a huge economy. This is a time of principles, values, and solidarity.
No, definitely. And I think we're going to leave on that note, Doc. Thank you so much for your insights. Always a pleasure chatting to you. And hope we chat again, and maybe it'll be with Mcebisi Jonas coming back from Washington with good news.
Thanks, Ella. Always a pleasure.
There you go, political analyst and also senior research fellow at the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership, Dr. Oscar van Heerden. And you can tell us what you think. Do you think South Africa needs to put a break on some of our policies, some of the issues that are very close to our hearts? For instance, the issue of the ICJ case. Do we need to maybe take a step back on that? The renaming of Santon Drive to Leila Khalid Drive, relations with the BRICS bloc. Do we maybe need to, relax a bit, look at the bigger picture, because things are going to get difficult. The United States is a big economy, and I don't think at this point, because of how much damage, our leaders in the last 30 years have caused to the South African economy, we come into these discussions and these negotiations, if there are any, with the United States with really no dry ammunition. We come with the highest unemployment rate in the world, an economy that's dwindling and is doing really, really badly. The highest, poverty rates that we've seen in South African history. The dollar to rand, in the last few weeks, you've seen how much that took a dip. So would the economy and our relations with the United States maybe come first? Would they be of primary concern rather than some of our solidarity issues? Russia, for instance, Iran, and whether or not we're talking to them about certain issues. Palestine, one that I think to a lot of South Africans is a non-negotiable. Should we maybe take a step back? Should we relax our efforts and solidarity with those countries to save ourselves, to save the masses here in South Africa, to save jobs and the diplomacy with the United States of America? What do you think? You can engage with us. Our WhatsApp line is 061 766 0355, or you can give us a call on 011 680 0355. How does South Africa counter these frozen diplomatic ties with the United States of America? But again, remembering that this is only a term. This is Donald Trump's term. We might need to weather out a storm for the next 3-4 years until it comes to an end, and then we'll see who the next leader of them in the United States is. Maybe they are more reasonable, maybe they are more cordial to South Africa, and are willing to listen to us, maybe that's the case. Maybe don't relax your efforts. Maybe just weather out the storm. Say we will not be bullied like other states have done, and then wait it out. Weather the impact, and see where it leads us in the next few years. It's going to be really interesting times ahead. I think it's going to be a test for South Africa and how we respond, because I don't think ever in our democratic history we've ever faced this kind of situation, especially with what we considered for a very, very long time a strategic partner, which is the United States of America. So interesting times ahead, and good luck to Mcebisi Jonas. Tough job. Probably the toughest job in the world right now, and I don't think I would have taken that one on. But he's a braver guy than me. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.